Learning with the Illuminati. Part 13. Continuation of the introduction to the somatosensomotor system. Circuitry going in and out of the spinal cord mediates several sensory motor reflex actions. Some stretch reflexes can be seen as negative feedback loops, which may maintain
You're gonna burn, all right.
You gotta get out of here, dude.
But I've got nerves of steel. I'm not big into books.
Greetings world. I am the New World Order, and some stretch reflexes can be seen as negative feedback loops, which may maintain their function through combinations of reciprocal muscle inhibition or flexion. The response to a muscle stretch can begin in the muscle spindles, and may continue with regulation of gamma motor neurons and the Golgi tendon organs, or for example, when the arm is subjected to a force, changing its position from being bended to being extended. The 1B afferent neurons innervating the Golgi tendon organs senses tension. They signals to neurons in the spinal cord, so-called 1B interneurons, to send inhibitory signals with alpha motor neurons to the flexion muscle. Meanwhile, excitatory signals are being sent to the extensor muscle, causing an extension of the arm, thus preventing damage to the flexion muscle fibers. This is called reciprocal innervation. It is called a polysynaptic reflex, when the reflex goes from sensory to motor neuron via at least one interneuron in the spinal cord. During reflexes like the withdrawal of a leg, the muscles in the opposite leg needs to contract in order to prevent the person to fall. This is made possible through the fact that some circuits are coupled opposite in each leg, causing an opposite reaction to the contralateral leg. Locomotion. Some rhythmic activities like walking and swimming are partially controlled via the spinal cord. These circuits can run on their own, without support from brain and sensory input, and are called central pattern generators, or CPG for short. In order to be classified as a CPG, Wikipedia states that two or more processes that interact such that each process sequentially increases and decreases, and that, as a result of this interaction, the system repeatedly returns to its starting condition. For example, this can be alternations between the left and right leg, and alternations between the flexor and extensor muscles. Control of movement. The cortex sends up motor neurons that influences the circuits in the brainstem and spinal cord. Some of the higher centers are the brainstem, important for balance, locomotion and facial behavior. The mesencephalic locomotor area, which controls locomotion. The vestibular nuclear complex and reticular formation, important for postural reflexes and autonomic and common somatic behavior. The primary motor cortex receives input from the basal ganglia, the cerebellum, and the thalamus, and is together with the premotor areas in the frontal lobe, important for planning and control of voluntary movements. Cortical axons from the primary motor cortex descend through two tracts, the Corticobulbar Tract, and the Corticospinal Tract. Like the sensory cortex, the primary motor cortex forms spatial maps of the contralateral side of the body, and muscle with fine coordination occupies larger areas of the cortex. The premotor cortex is important for timing of movements, specific direction of movements and intention of these. This cortex is divided into lateral premotor cortex, which reacts to external cues, and medial premotor cortex, which reacts to internal cues. Many pathways goes through structures in the brainstem, and may go through the vestibular complex, the reticular formation, and the superior colliculus. The vestibulospinal tract controls axial muscles and proximal limb movements. The reticulospinal tract is important for cardiovascular and respiratory control, sensory motor reflexes, and eye movements. The vestibular nuclei and reticular formation interacts with the spinal cord to maintain postural control. The vestibular nuclei is important for feedback responses to postural instability, whereas the reticular formation is important for feed-forward control of posture during ongoing movements.